Welcome to the Cody Felger Podcast, a podcast dedicated to talking Colts football. Here is your host, Cody Felger.
What's up, guys? Cody and Derek here. We thought we'd do something a little bit different for this podcast. We thought we'd look at our greatest Colts memories. And so I sent out a tweet and I also sent out a post on Facebook asking what your guys' favorite memories were. And so before we get into ours, I thought it would be cool to look at some of yours because there's a lot of awesome memories in the history of the Colts. And so we'll start with at Marcus Sniffles, who says, the Colts coming back at home to beat the New England Patriots and Indy to win the Super Bowl in 2006 is the only answer here. And he said, yes, I know that we actually played the Bears in the Super Bowl, but that Patriots win felt better, honestly. And so I would definitely agree with that, Marcus, because I think that was actually the first Colts game I remember specifically watching as a kid growing up. And that's kind of how I got on my fix of liking the Colts, was watching that game, watching that Marlon Jackson interception. And so, Derek, what do you think about that game? What are some memories that you have from that game?
Well, obviously, like you said, it was obviously one of those games that put us where we were at to win the Super Bowl. I do remember the interception. I don't remember a whole lot more other than that because at the time I wasn't as in-depth with the Colts as I was until the Super Bowl. But obviously, yeah, when you beat the Patriots, especially in that fashion, that game was certainly special. It holds a special place in all of our hearts as Colts fans to know that, in a situation that seemed like it wasn't going to happen, ends up happening, and you're just overwhelmed with just so much joyful emotion.
Yeah, I remember my family was going crazy. I remember exactly where I was. I was in our family's living room, and we were watching the game. Everybody was super tense because obviously it was a very close game. And when the Colts, won, when Marlon Jackson picked off Tom Brady, man, like my family went crazy, and that was my first introduction to the Colts, really. And so that one makes one of my top memories for sure. That's one of my top three memories. I think that one will probably be my number 3 just because I don't really remember a whole lot about it, but it was kind of my first fix into football. And so the reason why I have it at number 3 is simply because I wasn't a big fan at the time. I didn't really understand or really know football, didn't watch football, and so that's why it's my number 3. Still a great memory, probably a lot of Colts fans' number 1 memory, but for me, that's why it's number 3. And so another guy, Rich Middlebrook, he says, my best Colts memory was sitting on the 32-yard line to watch Bill Belichick go for it on 4th down and watching the Colts stuff him and go on to win the game. Still remember the exact emotions. Total, utter elation. Oh, man. This game, Derek, this was one of my favorite games. This one is probably my favorite game of all time. I remember I was sitting downstairs. I specifically remember what was happening here. I was sitting downstairs. My dad and I were watching this game. And the Colts at this point are just getting smoked. They're getting blown out of the water in their own house. We're just obviously not happy. We're ticked. I'm just so mad. I used to rage a lot when I watched Colts games. Kind of ashamed of that. But I was super ticked at what was happening. I was like, are we serious? Like, we're undefeated and we are getting blown out by the Patriots. Like, this is embarrassing. And so I remember my dad was like, all right, I've had enough of this. I'm going to bed. But I was like, I guess I'll watch one more series. And I think that was the series when the Colts scored, and I was like, okay, they're still down by a lot, but they have a chance. And so I remember watching that game and watching that 4th down, I was going crazy. Like, that was the wildest game I've ever seen in my life, a Colts game where it was just like, oh my word, what is happening? And then, obviously Peyton Manning to Reggie Wayne, the famous combination, man, that's got to be one of my favorite games, specifically because of the crazy comeback and who it was against. So, Derek, what do you remember from that game?
Oh, like you said, just, thinking what's going on here, just how we're getting beat so bad. And I think I was in the same boat as you, just still watching the game. My dad went to bed. He was like, I don't really want to watch this anymore. And then just seeing the comeback unfold again, just was so happy that I think my dad actually woke back up just to see what was going on. And we were both so happy. And don't feel bad for raging, Cody, okay? I rage really bad when it comes to a lot of Colts things and football in general. I'm just competitive like that. But like you said, when you're a Colts fan and the Colts beat the Patriots, there's just something just so sweet about it because, obviously they say that, the Patriots rivalry with us was dead for a while because, we just really had no shot. And then Chris Ballard obviously said the rivalry's back on, which is great to hear because obviously before there's other great rivalries in the NFL that are so much better. But when you think of some of the better rivalries in the NFL, the Colts and the Patriots always come to mind, at least for us. And seeing the Colts being able to beat the Patriots, especially in that kind of fashion, it just feels so much sweeter.
Yeah, man, that game, holy smokes. I remember I had I have a best friend who, in middle school and high school who is a Patriots fan. And we actually went to the game this past year in Foxborough. It was a great experience. Patriots fans, actually, they were pretty nice, very kind to me. So I have respect for some Patriots fans, not the ones on Twitter who troll all the time. But for the Patriots fans that were there, respect to you because you guys were very kind to me. And I remember when the Colts started making that comeback a little bit last year, even though they didn't win, I was like the only person in the crowd just going crazy, and it was an awesome memory. And so, the next guy, and this is one that I think a lot of Colts fans will have. It's more of a recent memory. Is the Kansas City game, the best comeback in Colts history, Will says. And I remember I wasn't at this game. It's actually kind of funny. Where I was out of the country when this game was happening. So this was my senior year. This was 2014, I believe, my senior year of high school. I went on a missions trip to Jamaica, and I was out of the country completely. And this always happens for whatever reason. Like when the Colts play playoff games, I'm always doing something where I can't watch the game. And so I remember I was out of the country, and we just flew in, and the Colts were down huge at that point. I was just like, well, that sucks. Why are we doing so badly? And I just didn't understand. But I actually wasn't able to watch any of that game because we flew into Indianapolis, and then we were driving back, and I was kind of following along on I think it was the Bleacher Report app or one of the apps, ESPN app, and kind of seeing the Colts are coming back. The Colts are coming back. And then seeing the Colts winning, I was just like, oh my word, I can't even believe that just happened. And then I was able to watch it at home and just it was unbelievable. I was like, how in the world did Andrew Luck pull off this comeback? This is the craziest thing I've ever seen. And so that was definitely a great memory. And so those three actually make my top three memories. Another one that I have that's interesting was the Colts versus the Packers in 2012. So this was Andrew Luck's rookie year. This was right after Chuck Pagano found out that he had cancer, and Bruce Arians has stepped in as the interim coach at that time. And I remember the Colts were playing this was when the Green Bay Packers were really, really good. This is when Aaron Rodgers was really, he's still pretty good, but this is when Aaron Rodgers was really on his game, and the Packers were like a perennial playoff Super Bowl contender. And I remember the Colts were down big again. Andrew Luck makes his famous comeback. I remember one play where Derek, he broke this tackle and made this throw to Reggie Wayne it was insane. That just showed me how good Andrew Luck is, and I've never doubted him since. And also just Reggie Wayne that game, man. Reggie Wayne had over 200 yards, made some insane catches. I always remember that one-handed catch over Charles Woodson. That was nuts. That was a crazy game as well. And so those games are some of the ones that are my favorite memories. Derek, do you have any more of your favorite memories from the Colts?
Yeah, and I'll start with my number one. As we kind of mentioned it just before this started up, it was my favorite memory was the Colts Super Bowl win in Super Bowl 41 against the Bears. That was, I think, the first game where I actually committed myself to be the Indianapolis Colts fan that I am today. Now, obviously, I had watched games beforehand for several years ahead of time on that because, my dad and I love to watch Peyton Manning. But to actually be able to, it was actually probably the first time I was actually able to stay up way past my bedtime to be able to watch that game as well. So I was certainly happy about that because mom gave me the exception because we were, having a good time down in the basement, family, friends all over watching the game. And just being able to witness my first championship from a team that I liked just sits with me forever. That was ultimately why I enjoyed that so much and why that's my number one memory. And then the second memory is like what you stated, the Chiefs comeback win. The story behind that one is I was watching that at first, and then obviously I did the same thing as most people probably did. Turned the TV off. I decided I was going to go to a women's basketball game at my high school because I was still in high school at that time. And I was there. I was just watching it. I was thinking, oh, the Colts lost. I'm so bummed out. And then all of a sudden, middle of the game, my dad texts me and then just says, the Colts just won. I was like, you're kidding. You're not being serious here. And then I quickly go on ESPN. I see that they won. I was like, are you kidding me? I just missed the greatest playoff comeback in Colts history. I mean, I was so upset at myself for missing that game. It's why I never really turn off games now, because I'm so upset that I missed history, because I could have had the chance to do it. But that night, I didn't go to sleep that night. I kept rewatching it because I had it on DVR. I kept rewatching it over and over and over again until I probably like 4 a.m. in the morning decided to finally go to sleep. So that was my second one. And my third one was not necessarily a Colts moment, but more of an NFL moment that involved the Colts. Now, anyone that has been following me on Twitter since, for several years back now, obviously has seen the video that I put up every time that the draft starts to come around. It was when the Colts drafted Malik Hooker. I was insanely surprised, and I'm sure, Cody, that you were surprised by that one as well. I was seeing him go down the leaderboard, because every time I was saying, he's going to get picked here. He's going to get picked here. And then just seeing all these other players get picked before him. And Josh and I, obviously the co-host for my podcast, the Third Down Squad, we're in that the same dorm watching that together with a bunch of friends. And then we see Malik Hooker get picked by the Colts. And then immediately the both of us just erupted into happiness. I almost tackled Josh just for how happy I was that the Colts got Malik Hooker. I was so, so happy. And that's pretty much what got me into the NFL draft so much now, is just being able to see who the Colts get. And those are my three greatest memories.
All right, well, if we're talking draft stories, I thought I should bring up one of my favorite draft memories, and it actually, similar to you, Derek, got me into the draft. I remember it was the year the Colts drafted Ryan Kelly, and I remember I was so excited because I was like, yes, finally the Colts have decided we're going to protect Andrew Luck. We actually care about Andrew Luck. And unfortunately, I watched the draft the entire way through, and unfortunately, the Colts didn't have the greatest draft. I mean, they drafted a guy like TJ Green and some other guys who really didn't have an impact on the Colts. But that really got me into the draft, and just about every year now, I try to watch the draft if I can. I unfortunately wasn't able to watch it this past year, but I remember the year before I was able to watch it, and I watched all the way through that historic 2018 draft. And now, Derek, whenever the draft's happening and I know that I'm able to watch it, I tell all my friends, I'm like, if you're looking for me, you're probably not going to find me. I'm probably going to be locked away in a room watching the draft, because that is my weekend to do that. And so that's probably one of my favorite draft memories, simply because now the NFL draft is probably one of my favorite things. And it all started with that draft back when the Colts picked Ryan Kelly.
Yeah, and because of the draft where we drafted Malik Hooker, that has just become a thing for my friends and I. We meet every year to make sure we watch the first round of the NFL draft together. We definitely enjoy that every year. And Ryan Kelly was also another great pick of mine. I have a video of that too, from my reaction to that. And Josh and I were both very happy. Obviously not as giddy and as excited as the Malik Hooker one was, but we obviously were very happy with the pick. My bias towards Ohio State and Alabama was still at an all-time high at that point. I was upset because we didn't get Taylor Decker, who went a couple picks before us, obviously to the Lions, because I really liked Taylor Decker. He actually played at a high school that was only about 20 minutes from where I played, and he actually went on to college the same year that I became a freshman, so I was kind of upset I didn't get to play against him at all, but yeah, it was kind of one of those things. I really wish we would have gotten Taylor, but yeah, just Ryan Kelly, just that pick was really a really great pick. It was obviously one of the most sane picks that we had gotten from that time. And like you said, it was a great time of the year for that. And again, my friends and I love to just watch the draft and watch what the Colts, and one of my friends who's a Browns fan, we obviously like to make fun of him every now and again for some of the picks that they make.
Yeah, poor guy. He's had to watch a lot of bad drafts for the Browns. But hey, we'll give him this. The Browns are looking pretty good. I mean, they drafted well last year, and maybe this year we'll see. But yeah, I think that kind of concludes our podcast. Thank you guys for submitting your questions. All you who submitted your questions in your post to my question. We'll definitely have to do that again. And we want to get your guys' voice heard on this podcast. That's what we're doing. That's what we're all about, is getting Colts fans connected. And so thank you guys. And thank you, Derek, for coming on, man. It's always fun to talk Colts and talk Colts memories. And we'll have to do something similar to this very soon. And so thank you, everybody, for listening. Be sure, if you haven't already, to give us a like, give us a subscribe, make a comment. We'd love to hear from you. And yeah, thanks, guys, and go Colts. Hey all, Cody here. I just wanted to say first off, thank you so much for supporting my podcast. It really means a lot to have all your backing. If you haven't yet, be sure to hit that subscribe button and also put the bell on so you know when I post. You can always find my episodes here on YouTube, but if you're like me and you like listening to podcasts on the podcast app, you can find me there as well. Second, if you really like my podcast and you'd like to support me in some way, you can find me on Patreon. As much as I enjoy doing this, it also takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, and also a little bit of my own personal funds. So if you'd ever want to support me on Patreon, you can find me there at patreon.com/Cody Felger Podcast. Again, that's patreon.com/Cody Felger Podcast. Thanks everyone, and go Colts.